I have some top-tier additions to my fantasy romance book recommendations with truly elite levels of yearning. As a picky reader, I'm always craving that specific heart-squeezing feeling that only comes from well-written romantasy. And while I'm searching for the next hidden gem to satisfy my love for a dash of political intrigue, great character development, and copious amounts of longing, I had to update my recommendations because these new finds are just too good to keep to myself. In my first video about fantasy romance books with the best yearning, I talked a lot about the concept of it and yearning in classics. So here I just summarize all of it by saying yearning works so well in romance stories because the obstacles lend weight to the feelings. The higher the obstacles that stand in the way of the characters' feelings, the better the payoff once they overcome these challenges. It doesn't matter if the world is keeping them apart or if they are just getting in their own way, that tension is what makes the payoff feel so earned. So let's see some examples of elite yearning in my opinion, starting with a new edition, my favorite book of 2025, Wild Reverence. Already the setup tells you that we're gonna be in for so much longing and so much heartache. Our main characters, the goddess Matilda and the mortal Vincent, are from very different worlds, literally, not only figuratively, but that doesn't stop them from forming an unlikely bond as internal obstacles, duty and war try to keep them apart. By the way, have you realized how amazing Rebecca Ross is at keeping the tension between her characters, even while they are apart? She did it masterfully in Wild Reverence, but also in Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, and in A River Enchanted and A Fire Endless. If you enjoyed this particular flavor of yearning, distance and obligations keeping the lovers apart, while they vow to stay committed to each other, you seriously need to check out her work, and not only just one book. In Wild Reverence, she illustrates this with beautiful lines. Some I will quote here because they deserve their moment. If I want to talk about a book that ticks all of the boxes for me and is criminally underrated on booktube, it is Reign and Ruin. I will never stop talking about this because this book has everything. Highly capable main characters who find understanding in each other, one being the heir to the Sultanate and the other the unwanted second prince, political intrigue with high stakes, elemental powers that are symbolic and lend depth to the characters, and so much yearning. Similarly to Wild Reverence, here as well it's duty and obligations that keep them apart, which makes their story bittersweet, but so gratifying once they decide to choose each other. I read this first as an ebook, but I had to get the physical copy, and honestly, just talking about it makes me want to reread it and annotate all my favorite parts. Let me convince you to pick this up with some quotes that illustrate the yearning and self-restraint that both characters go through. Another underrated gem, but with a very different vibe, is My Fair Romance from Tess-Sonia Odette. Rather than self-restraint, what gives depth to the yearning here is the characters' belief of what they have is temporary. They both fundamentally think that they are not suited for romance, therefore it's such a rewarding journey how they learn new things about themselves through the other's eyes. This one is definitely lower stakes than Wild Reverence and Reign and Ruin, more of a fantasy, fae rom-com, where Daphne is in need of a male model to learn how to paint, and Monty is in need for a matchmaking subject to keep up his reputation. If you know me, you know I'm not a fan of the friends to lovers development, and this book is the only exception. It was done so well. From the familiarity to the flirting, I ate this one up. I tried to find quotes to include here too, but it was hard not to give some plot points away, so you just need to read it and see for yourself. Based on Rain and Ruin, you could guess that I have a soft spot for the tortured, unwanted prince character, so no surprise that the next on the list is We Free the Stars, the second book of the Sands of Araviya duology. I would say that the yearning and the longing is already there in the first book, We Hunt the Flame, but it really shines in the second one. Here the love deepens between Nasir, the Prince of Death, and Zafira, the Hunter, and a lot of it is tied to internal conflict. Nasir believes himself unworthy of love, shaped by his horrible upbringing, and Zafira is fiercely independent and burdened by duty, where she cannot put her own desires above what's expected of her. As you can tell, this one is heavy with tension, internal monologues, and things left unsaid, and every scene just adds another layer to it. Here are some of my favorite quotes from We Free the Stars. And last but not least, I cannot make a list about yearning in fantasy romance books and not include Two Twisted Crowns, the second part of the Shepherd King duology. Would you believe this? We have another tortured prince character who believes himself unworthy of love. I'm sensing a pattern here. Here, Am wrestles with a lot of things internally without spoiling anything, and Ione doesn't make it easy for him, and that makes their dynamic even more fascinating. It's a story of two broken people finding their other halves and realizing that they would go to great lengths to protect what's theirs. It is a dark, gothic fantasy in the best of ways, and I would recommend it not only for the love story development, but the twisty plotline and fantasy world building as well, which has a unique card-based magic system. Here are some quotes that might convince you to pick it up. There you have it, my recommendations if you are craving some elite tier yearning. Honorable mention goes to the books that I haven't read yet, but I have high expectations for to serve exactly the flavor of yearning I enjoy, the everlasting, and the spark of the everflame. I will report back on those probably in a future reading wrap-up. Don't forget to subscribe to catch my next video. Hope your summer reading is full of amazing books. Take care, bye! Bloopers. They both fundamentally, based on Rain and Ruin, you could guess that I have a soft spot. Perfect take. Bam. Read this book.